You're listening to the 40 Thrive Podcast, the show created for women 40 and beyond, ready to shake things up. And now, your host, Jackie McDougall.
Welcome to another episode of 40 Thrive. December is in full swing. We've got so much going on. I'm so excited you're here because I have a lot to tell you. First of all, did you know it's the 40 Thrive podcast second anniversary? How exciting! December 12th, 2020 will be 2 years that I've been doing this podcast. And what better way to celebrate than to kick off this year's gift guide and giveaway? We're talking gifts to help you thrive, provided by our very own 40 Thrive podcast guests. Mind, body, career, home, you are definitely going to want to see what's in store for you. I'll be sharing all of the amazing products and services from past 40 Thrive guests, and each day you will have the opportunity to enter to win one of those prizes. Awesome, right? And speaking of thriving and prizes, we are in the final days of our Kindra giveaway. This partnership has been so fun, and I love how much it's actually helping our 40 Thrive community. What is Kindra, you ask? Maybe you haven't heard. Kindra makes hormone-free perimenopause and menopause essentials designed by women for you. This collection includes a daily vaginal lotion and applicator designed to dramatically improve dryness in intimate areas, and 3 supplements, each thoughtfully developed to address menopause symptoms, including hot flashes, disrupted sleeping, night sweats, fatigue, you get it. If you've had it, you need it. Kindra is offering 40 Thrive listeners 20% off. Just click the link in the description of this episode or go to ourkindra.com and make sure that you use the promo code 40thrive20. So it's FORTY, Thrive, and the number 20. So not only can you go over and get 20% off, you could possibly win the entire Kindra product suite, including all of those products I just mentioned. We're talking $170 value. To enter, just check out the description of this episode or visit 40thrive.com/episode 85. Again, 40thrive.com/episode 85. It is so easy. You can enter to win through December 11th. The winner will be chosen at random on the 12th, and it's the perfect way to kick off our gift guide and giveaway. And as always, there's absolutely no purchase necessary to enter to win. Good luck. Okay, I'm pumped for today's episode. I gotta tell you, whenever I meet someone and I learn so many things just by having a conversation, I know there's gold in it for the audience because, how many of us have tried every single diet? Oh my gosh, we're old enough to like the cabbage soup diet, the keto and paleo and Weight Watchers, and like what diets have you done? I've probably done them too, right? In the past, how many decades we've probably gotten caught up in every fad diet there is. But I don't know about you. I'm just ready to feel better and move better and live better and just improve my life and not just necessarily have to look better in the mirror. As I approach 50, that is my goal, is to just wake up and feel good and move and do the things that I love to do and eat delicious food, but not mindlessly and not stuff that makes me feel bad. So today's conversation is the first step. If you're ready to move forward, 2021 is your year. I can feel it. You're definitely going to want to hear this conversation I have today with Annie Gaudreault. She's a holistic nutritionist, speaker, wellness coach. She's up in Toronto, our North American neighbor, and she's going to help us align our food, our eating, our way of looking at nutrition with what our body truly craves. There are so many helpful and truthful nuggets in here. You will be well on your way to wellness in just 45 minutes. Let's just dive in. Here's my conversation with Annie Gaudreault. Annie, welcome to 40 Thrive.
Thank you for having me, Jackie.
I want to talk about all of the ways you are helping women in midlife change themselves from the inside out. But first, I was doing a little digging. You were working a high stressful job in your late 30s, maybe approaching 40. What happened?
What did not happen? It was a crazy time. And you're right. And my 20s, 30s, and right up to early 40s, I was working, for myself in an agency in a world that was very deadline driven and extremely intense, where basically yesterday was old thing. What can you do for me today? I found myself at a crossroad. I had made a number of very poor decisions in my life, including terrible relationship decisions. I'd burned through friendships, all because I was always prioritizing work. And I was deeply miserable, even though on the outside, I had a lot going for me and I had a successful career, quotation mark, and was making good money in the field that I was really, really unhappy. And not just work. I was just unhappy, period, with my life.
Right. And to the naked eye, it sounds like you had everything. Aren't we always so fixated on, oh, she has it all?
Yes. Oh my God. Absolutely. Absolutely. And a big factor also was the fact that even though I grew up, my mom died, I was young. My dad started to be sick in my 40s. And I had been very, very close to him. And I think that you cannot avoid but think about your own life when people close to you are struggling with an illness.
Yes.
Or, in this case, we knew he was going to be passing. And you cannot not stop but reflect and go, what are the decisions that I'm making? Where am I going? Is this going in the direction that I want? And am I happy with this? I basically could answer no. Everything was a no. I was not happy with where I was. It was a very humbling experience because I had always thought of myself as this very smart, very capable person, which I am, but I had made just terrible decisions for myself.
So how did you take that first step from patterns of what quote unquote terrible decisions and start to make positive decisions?
I actually went into a pretty intense therapy. I knew my decisions were not a lack of intelligence, but a lack of ability to be really honest with myself. And I did not understand why that was. I knew I had a lot of scars from, a childhood where our mother was not available and she was sick. And we were basically kind of self-raising ourselves. And some of us did better than others with that. I basically created this big barrier around me. And so I was incapable of really true, meaningful relationships with people. I was like a bulldozer. It's a very lonely life.
Yeah. I just give you so much credit. That takes so much courage to look at your life and to know it's not a lack of intelligence. It's a lack of honesty and authenticity. I've seen many women who go to that high profile, high powered existence trying to prove they are not the result of their circumstances. And so it sounds like you did that times 10.
Yes. I remember the first day I went to meet this potential therapist at the time, because she was kind of interviewing me as much as I was interviewing her. And she was like, so why are you here? And that was even difficult to articulate. But I remember that I told her, I am at this crossroad and I can either continue to do what I've done. And you can't survive that way because I see it all around me. You can. But I am going to be even more miserable. And I just can't imagine the next 30 years to be this way, or 40 years. We're living older. I knew there was better. I just knew there was better. And so I said, I am taking the other path, but I have never been on this path before. And I need somebody to guide me. So this is why I'm here.
Right.
You got to help me figure this shit out, because this is not a life. It's the appearance of a life. And as you mentioned before, it's the appearance of success, and it's the appearance of achievement, and it's the appearance of you're ticking all the right boxes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And is that when you started running as well?
No, I had started to run before, mostly because I was very stressed because of my job. And a business coach had said to me, it would help you to just start doing something that will get this stress out. And running was the only thing where you could do at any time of the day. So you did not have to be at a gym at a certain hour doing a class. And because work was my first love, I gave all to that. So therefore running was, at 5 a.m. or at 8 p.m. It didn't matter. Right.
Right. And so then you've taken on 10 marathons since then and 3 Ironman long distance. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted just saying 3 Ironman races. I mean, that is a testament to your commitment, your ability to really take on commitment. And so at what point did you give up this high-powered job and all that and get into nutrition?
It was in my early 40s, actually. As I was seeing that I needed to make different choices, I knew, it was one of those, oh my God, 50 is not far, because I could see how everything was like accelerating. And I thought, I can't be in this same job that doesn't fulfill me. I may not have known a lot of things about myself, but I knew I loved health and fitness. I did not know how I could have a rewarding job that would pay me that could be in that field. But I knew that what I was doing on a day-to-day basis was really against most of those values that I held. And I think that being able to follow that in my heart truly was the indication of, I need to go and do something with this. And thank God for marathoning and thank God for triathlons, because I knew then that there was already so much that I had learned from doing, but I knew that I needed nutrition in order to complement that beautiful health and wellness wheel, because I had activity and I understood physiology. So I decided I'm going to go back to school, do this part-time, and then I'll figure out what I can do to transition to this.
Right.
And if I need to do both, I'll do both for as long as it takes.
Well, that's such an interesting crossroads that you were at, because I see a lot of people, number one, go, it's too late to take this other path. Or number two, I have to blow up absolutely everything in my life to focus on this path. And then they don't have necessarily the support or the finances or whatever it is that they need. So that's a great way to look at starting something new, in that get the education, tiptoe into it. I'm sure it was more than a tiptoe, but like, don't necessarily give up all of the other things that are supporting you quite yet.
Totally. There's a lot to be said for the fact that you can do this part-time for a long time. And I know a lot of people still to this day that came to school with me and are still doing it just part-time and consider the money that they make there just to be bonus money. And they've kept their day job. It doesn't have to be everything for everyone, but it's something that you said earlier. Most people think it's too late. And that's the greatest tragedy of our world right now. To believe that if you didn't do it in your 20s, your 30s, it's too late. The fact is that you have a long life. And I don't think I would have been able to do what I did in my 40s, if I had been in my 20s, because I didn't have the maturity. And actually in endurance sports, younger people don't do as well, because you need a lot of self-knowledge, because it's a mental game. It's so brutal. And you don't have that maturity in your 20s. You haven't had a chance to be resilient, because resilience is, you're not born with it, right? The skill, it's just like learning to play the violin. It's like, thousands of hours of practice. Resilience is the same thing. You have to have shit happen to you and pick yourself up and dust yourself off to be able to build it. So thank God that I did it later, because it was really hard to do it working full time and writing papers and, doing biochemistry in your 40s is crazy. Yeah. But it's really great, because now I think often, I'd like to go and study a little bit more of some science to supplement some other areas now. And I never think, oh, it's too late. I always think, let's hurry up, because there's so much to learn.
Right. That's a great attitude. And so you become a nutritionist. I had to go to your website because I love this. On the homepage, it says, does this sound familiar? weight gain, poor sleep, not knowing where to start, joint pain, mood issues and depression, feeling stressed or overwhelmed, confused about all the info out there, lacking passion about anything, and foggy brain. And I was like, yes, this morning. That was this morning. So if you're listening right now, you're probably thinking like there are at least 3 of those that you feel like are just part of life over 40 or over 50. Like it just is. And in some ways, great, you have acceptance, but it doesn't have to be just is, correct?
Oh my God, that's another big lie that we're told. I always call them the myths of aging. Society portrays midlife and senior life as this age of decay, as this age that we have to accept that it's going to be subpar, that we cannot have the greatest vitality, that we cannot have this amazing joy of bouncing off the bed and just wanting to get to our day. That's a myth. It's a myth that this is no longer possible. And women, because we are ignored, 45, forget it. We are not in the discourse anymore. We're disappearing. Mm-hmm. And so we believe that this is normal. And doctors are not highly educated around truly, what is going on and, with truly menopause and the notion of healthy aging. They are, 20 years behind usually because textbooks are updated 20 years behind. So right. They are not up to speed with what are the possibilities. And the good news is that there is some nice little wind of optimism where we are seeing older, not just women, but men, that are older, that are accomplishing more. And women should not have to suffer. And they should not believe that this is going to be just, oh, well, it's just me getting older. It's my body changing. Oh, well, estrogen dropped. Therefore, everything's got to be shitty now. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It doesn't mean it can be solved in 2.5 minutes. But just like anything else, with a little bit of a customized approach, we can definitely move out of that.
Right. You're absolutely right with when I meet a medical professional who takes a holistic approach to health and doesn't just want to treat symptoms, but actually want to treat the whole human, I'm always in awe because it's really important to find healthcare professionals who are aligned with what your real goals are. But then there are people like you who will help you create all of this vitality without having to go to a doctor for some sort of medication. So let's just pretend I come into you and I say, I'm overweight. I work out all the time. I just don't feel like myself. What are your first steps when you work with someone?
It's really looking at all the dimensions of your life, right? Because you are a total person. You didn't just come in as a woman that, works out and doesn't sleep well. Mm. Like we try to look at all your past and what is going on right now to understand what is your environment. What is affecting you? What's the other weight that you're carrying? There's a lot of things that affect that. I also work with some wonderful medical professionals who get it. Yes. And will supply proper blood tests. We are going to be looking at your markers and look at what is going on with your hormones, look at markers like your blood sugar levels. Right? I could also be determining, this is interesting. Your blood sugar is awfully high. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into not just what you eat, but when do you eat? What's the context in which you eat? Are you like eating in front of the television every day and never even aware of how much you are eating? So we are looking at all of these things because the root causes are always there. Always, always, always there. Right. So it's a holistic thing. Are you under immense stress at home? Are you caring for aging parents and also kids at home? What is going on, right? So we are looking at the total picture as well.
Right. And I love that because you're not just like, oh, you're eating salt and vinegar chips, you should stop that. Like when you start to understand why your behaviors happen and why they continue to happen, then I think it's probably easier to change those habits, right?
Totally. Self-awareness and understanding what's going on first and foremost is really giving you the tools to be empowered. I always say, people arrive and speak with me, or they believe that this is like that in life. They arrive and they are in the back seat of their car. They're not even the passenger. They're in the back seat. And there's like the car's going here and the car's going there. And they go, oh my God, I'm out of control. It's like, yeah, because you forgot that you can get out of the back and walk to the front and sit in the driver's seat, right? So I want to give women those tools to be in the driver's seat and make the decisions, then I get them to the direction that they want.
I love that.
So that you go, right, I have the energy that I want. I'm able to take those art classes that I've been wanting to do. And my weight is slowly coming off. I'm a big proponent of, it's not one size fits all. And if it looks too good to be true, it is too good to be true. It's not sustainable. And that's usually not helpful for women's health, right? So
right.
Very aware of that as well.
Yeah. And just by doing some research, once we decided to have this conversation, what you provide does not feel like weight loss coaching. It feels like life building. So through the choices that we make, you are creating this vitality, this energy. And yes, weight loss is sort of a byproduct of living in alignment with your body. Is that true?
For sure. Absolutely. And, I just wrote, actually, my last newsletter was about sharing how when I was in school, I used to say, I'm never going to do weight loss as a field, a specialty. I'm never going to do weight loss. And because I felt that women were judged so much already by our appearance that I felt that it was incongruent for me to be taking that approach. However, the real world showed me that women need help with weight loss. But the weight loss comes on multitude of places.
Right.
Some are inactive. Some have neglected their health for a long time. Some have poor eating habits. Some have hormonal challenge, but it's a multitude of things. And too much accumulated weight does cause a lot of disease and inflammation. So long term, because I am obsessed about healthy aging, I do need to talk about weight loss because it is something that will affect your quality of life. Where we talk about, the lifespan ad nauseum, but we don't talk about the health span.
That's a good point.
I want to be talking about the health span. Under what condition are you going to be living? If you want to be living until 85 or beyond, I think, wow, all the power to you. I think that's wonderful. But what's going to be the quality of life that you have during that time? Are you going to be on 8 drugs and they have so many counter effects on each other that, you can't sleep and then you can't do this and another one gives you that? Like, it is incredibly important to have those conversations. So that's why weight loss, having a healthy weight, and healthy weight means something different for you, Jackie, than it means for me. But there are some parameters. Right. And we know that beyond those parameters, it causes disease. And it causes disease like if you got a turbocharge in your car, right? It accelerates aging and it accelerates the onset of disease. So we do need to have that conversation because it impacts you as a human being significantly.
Absolutely. But even the way you're saying it is sort of course, weight loss is something really important because I want to live not just to 85, but a nice active life throughout. I'm tired of the fad diets and the before and after pictures. Don't get me wrong. I get sucked in and they motivate me for, a half a second. But I'm at the point, and I know a lot of women who listen to the show and who are also at that same place where they just want to feel good in their skin. They don't want to feel like embarrassed when they get on a plane that their thighs are touching their neighbor, or they want to be able to play with grandkids. Many people are starting to have grandkids. And so I like the approach that weight loss is more of a boost in vitality and not a punishment.
Exactly.
Weight loss for so many years was a punishment. Like, now I have to deprive myself And then, once I start depriving myself, I want that thing even more. I mean, if you tell me that I cannot have cheesecake, which by the way, I don't care about cheesecake, but the second you tell me that I can't have cheesecake, it is the most important thing in my entire life.
Absolutely.
because I will not have you tell me that I can't do something. We have that strong woman mentality, right? And so I like that your approach is coming from a place of thriving. It's coming from a place of feeling your best. And so what are some of the changes that you see your clients make that may feel small or may feel more simple, but make a huge impact in their lives?
One of the biggest thing, and I didn't think that it was going to be, but it comes up again and again. They start to say, oh, but Annie, I'm aware of what I'm doing now. Like they start to take mindfulness of how they wake up. What kind of sleep did I have? I wonder what I did to create this. They start to understand that everything is a cause and effect, and that they are responsible for all of those things. And they will say, oh, well, I know I snacked because I had a terrible lunch. And they start to be aware. So the first step is honestly like a little pad of paper with a pen, the time of day, to realize what are the habits that I have. Do I wake up, maybe not right now because when COVID and a lot of us are not having to rush to go to work, but
right.
I know people who get up at 8:30 to be on their first Zoom at 9, right? There hasn't been any quality time for focus, for intentions, certainly to make a healthy breakfast if you are a person who eats breakfast, because that's not necessarily here or there, but if you do, did you have a chance to focus on yourself and be centered? Or is everything now going to be like, the tail wagging the dog, as opposed to you being again in the driver's seat? So being aware of what is going on and taking consciousness of every single action that you have, because it all unravels from there.
I know for me, I would benefit from having that notebook next to me. I can sort of get down my thoughts and my feelings and center myself before I start to be bombarded with other people's opinions and needs. What does your morning look like?
Well, one of the things is never any social media in the morning. I want to control my day. And in order to control your day, you have to remove these voices, these other voices, right? You need to hear what's inside of you first and foremost, not what's inside of some, perhaps intelligent, but perhaps not so intelligent person in the middle of nowhere that is not educated, is suddenly going to poison your thoughts, right? So my morning routine is early start. Around 5:30, that's usually the perfect sweet time for me, except when we're on vacation and I deliberately stray from that. But 5:30, wake up, and then it's coffee, it's journaling, and journaling more for intentions and for listening again to, is something on my mind, is something bugging me, is something stressing me out, something that I need to deal with this because it's clearly coming back over and over again.
Right.
Those things. And I set my intentions for the day. I do my meditation, and then I work on what I call a little bit more heavier stuff. So more content related things that require a lot of concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And then around 9 a.m., I will turn on email. Now I'm ready to answer the world because I've already set what were my priorities today, and I've already worked on my most important project.
Right.
And then that launches me in a successful way. And I will tell you that when I don't do that, I always end up feeling all horrible. And I'll say, what is going on? And I'll be like, oh, well, I know what's going on. I was looking at Instagram and there's something upsetted me that I saw on Facebook, right? Because I am no different than everyone else. I'll be like, oh my God, I cannot believe that person said that. And it's easy today because we live in a very polarized world.
Mm-hmm.
We're not living in an age of discussion. We're living in an age of, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes.
We're not living in an age of, let me see what you have to say. I wonder if there's something there that could also help me better understand you. So all that to say that you really need to, I call it the detoxing and the fasting is more important around social media, and what you put inside of you is so, so important.
That's such a great way to put it. Think about social media as nutrition, you know?
Yes.
It's like getting up and eating McDonald's first. And then you don't really want the fruit or the vegetables or whatever it is. So yeah, that's a great point. And so you mentioned something that I have to go back to. You said, if you have breakfast. So are you officially here giving us permission to not have breakfast if we don't want it?
Absolutely. You know, scientifically, there's about 30% of people that when they wake up, the last thing they want is food. Those people who, even if the smell of bacon that everybody loves and adores, right? They go, oh, that's terrible, right? So those people there's nothing wrong about them. They're totally fine. And they can eat usually around 10:30. That's usually how it works for them. That's perfectly fine. Breakfast was invented by Kellogg's. It's a marketing thing. However, there are people who wake up hungry. And it's totally fine to have breakfast then. So again, it's about listening to what works for you.
I love that. Because I have a kid too. I'm not a big breakfast eater. And I have one of my 3 kids is not a breakfast eater. And as a mom, I don't want to send him off. Well, right now school's at home, so that's different. But I don't want to send him off to school where they get distracted and then he doesn't eat all day. But at the same time, if he doesn't want it, you know, I just get him some of those like protein shakes or something to get him something into his body for some energy.
Exactly.
But I'm glad that you say that because, and you're absolutely right. There are so many habits that we have that were marketing tools. You know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Who said it? You know? And so I love that you're giving us permission. So, okay. So now we're going to be more mindful with our mornings. We have breakfast or don't have breakfast. What are a couple of common misconceptions we have or ways that we're sort of sabotaging our own success in this area?
You know, you talked about this whole level of energy for women, right? Like, oh, we're like feeling lethargic, and it's very real. Whether you have breakfast or not, every meal should have high content of good quality protein and good quality fats and some amount of carbs as well. The fact is that you need the carbs, the fat, and the protein always at each meal, or if you're going to snack, that it has those 3 in order to have sustained energy. Otherwise, what happens is the blood sugar levels are going to rise very, very dramatically, and then they are going to go down as fast as they went up. That's when you experience those terrible lows. And we've all been there, and you feel like, oh my God, I don't want to do anything, and I just want to go and have a nap, right? In order to have that sustained energy all day, that's the secret. Good quality protein, good quality fats, and good quality carbs in the right proportion. And I will tell you, I never snack. It's so rare.
Really?
Yeah. And unless I am in big training, like if I were to train for an Ironman right now, I would want to snack because I'm hungry all day because you train so much.
Right.
You know, like right now I go for runs, I do a little bit of yoga. Like I would say I'm active, but not extreme like I used to be. But I eat a lot. I don't deprive myself, but I always make sure those 3 are part of each meal. And I will guarantee you will not get hungry and your energy will be stable all day long. That should be normal. The fact is that processed foods, food service, restaurants, etc., use very, very bad fats. Quality of the ingredients sometimes is not that wonderful. So unfortunately, we sabotage ourselves by, we eat a lot of food, but doesn't have a lot of quality to it.
Right. What kind of quality fats do you consume or recommend for your clients?
Oh, Jackie, this is like a $1 million question. It is probably one of the most misunderstood thing right now. It used to be carbs. Now people are starting to come around.
And even carbs are misunderstood. Those are next, so don't you worry.
Okay. So even to the point where I actually created a healthy guides to fat, and it's on my website. So cool. I know at the end we can talk about that.
I will link to that.
It was so complicated that I thought I need to put this in a nice little diagram for people. But basically, there's nothing wrong with fats from meats, but in small quantities, just like meat in general should not be over the top in your diet. But cold water fish fat, anything that is part of tuna, fish, haddock, sardines, trout, excellent sources of fat. We're looking at omega-3s that are in those types of nutrients, looking at flax, things that are extremely good, again, on the omega-3s, a little bit more difficult to absorb by the body when it's a vegetable source, but that's okay. You just need to be a little bit more patient with those. Coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, nut oils are extremely good. They oxidize really fast. So you do need to be careful as to where you keep them. A lot of people love the jars, they put them on their counter, but they don't like the light. So make sure that they are actually hidden and protected from the light.
And that's for nut oils, you're saying?
All nut oils, yes, are very, very sensitive to light. So usually they are sold in amber bottles as a way to protect the oil. But as soon as you've purchased, you should keep them like in the dark. Much better. Yes. Much easier. Extra virgin cold press, coconut oil as well, avocado oil. Those are great sources. But they're not, again, all created equal if you're going to be consuming cold or hot. So I highly suggest that anybody who's listening and interested in this topic, download my guide from the website. It's free. I'm not going to bother you. And you can understand what you can use cold versus hot, because everything is chemical with the body and everything is an interaction between things, and heat does modify the chemical structure of fat. Well, it modifies the chemical structure of everything. So you want to be mindful that, for example, butter and ghee are excellent if you are going to be having a little bit of heat underneath your pan, but you don't want to do that to a delicate nut oil. Those are best used cold. Or in a smoothie. I do that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. In the morning, I said you need to have carbs, fats, and protein. So if you're going to have a smoothie, the problem that people make is it's all like, oh, look, Annie, it has kale and it has this, but there's no fat. So you need fat to metabolize some vitamins, by the way. So very important to have good quality fat. So I will add a little bit of olive oil in there. You don't taste it. It's all blended, and it helps metabolize those vitamins, those crucial vitamins. So super important. Yeah.
And would an avocado do the same thing?
Yes.
Because I love an avocado in the shake.
Yeah.
The protein.
It's wonderful. And it's got fiber. It's got vitamin E. So it's very good. Amongst other things, of course, it has a lot of.
My problem is I get a nice big avocado and then it says like, have a quarter of it. I'm like, what?
Yes.
I'm no quitter. No.
Yes, exactly. No, I know. That's true. And they're so delicious, right?
Yeah. And then they get brown if you don't eat them. So it's, it's a whole thing. So carbs, it's funny because we act like carbs are the enemy, but vegetables are carbohydrates, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so it's really about good carbs versus not as effective carbs.
Correct. Yes. It's what you would find in your garden, right? So you want to be eating vegetables. The more color, the more variety, the merrier. Where we get into trouble is all those complex carbs, right? And usually we don't get in trouble because we have one sweet potato. We get into trouble because at every meal, there's a substantial amount of processed carbs. Because as North Americans, we have these wraps and the sandwiches and the cereal. It's so centered around those things.
Yes.
And they are high calorie, high in sugar when they get converted. So you do get some energy, and so it's not all bad, but it's too much, too intense, and too many times during the day. So, if you had one slice of rye bread during the day, you would be fine. The problem is we have 2 a.m, and then at lunch we have a big wrap. And then there were also some potatoes. And then at dinner, I'm going to have a little bit of rice. So I'm going to have some pasta, and it just accumulates, and it's just too much.
That makes sense. And also, do you see that your clients will try to avoid carbs altogether, and then they have this salad or this protein and fats thing, and then they're just so hungry after that they reach for the processed carbs because that's the only thing that will really satiate that hunger?
Very much so. Very much so.
I have no idea. I mean, I can only assume people do that. I have no experience with that at all.
And to your point, right? If you tell someone, I never want you to ever have complex carbs ever again.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
I mean, I don't even like rye bread. And if you told me I couldn't have it, I'd probably find a way.
Exactly. Right. So we really want to make sure that we keep a little bit of focus on what's realistic for people and that there is some goodness, once in a while, like I like farro. It has some gluten, I don't have 3 cups of it. The problem is you see these servings and it's like massive. It's like,
yes.
Now keep that to be a small part and then compensate with a lot of other vegetables. And the fact is that North Americans are not overeating vegetables. Believe me, they overeat meat and too much of the starch. Right. So if you can take those down and elevate more vegetables, more nuts, a little bit more legume, honestly, all of us would be healthier by all markers of health.
And you make a good point too, that as Gen X, we grew up where it was like, you finish what's on your plate.
Totally.
You don't waste food. So we're all trying to sort of deprogram or reprogram ourselves that it's okay to leave something on your plate or put it in the fridge for the next day or whatever it is, especially for people who, I have 12 siblings. You had respect for the amount of food that you got and that you ate it all.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to waste. And there are a lot of people who grew up in very low income families. It's ingrained in them. And so we just have to sort of reprogram ourselves to understand that it's okay to quote unquote waste a little bit.
Yes, and to redesign the plate. I call it redesign your plate so that you make the vegetables more interesting and varied. That can be half of your plate. And then you can have a little bit of the pasta or the rice or whatever that may be, and a little bit of additional protein, as opposed to our psyche of big thing in the middle that becomes a protein in the rest. So reimagining what that can look like, right? Not completely eliminating it. And that works very rarely for people. Very rarely. That's why the diet industry is so rich.
Right.
Because they abuse the trust and they muck around with people's psyche. And it's simply, unfair and unconscionable in my mind.
Yeah.
They really prey on our vulnerabilities.
They really do. And they rely on them to make ends meet and to make a profit.
Yes, exactly. And I'm really about being healthy for the long run. If you want to be healthy for the long run, you need to have overall diet that is balanced. You don't want to be deprived. You don't want to not have any fiber in your diet, for example. Right? I know a lot of people who go on these big paleo diets and, they can't poop anymore. There is no more fiber. And that is extremely dangerous for the body. It's not just, it's a little bit of a sensitive topic to discuss, but it's extremely bad because you're not eliminating properly. And that means the toxins are staying in you. Think about what happens when you don't get rid of the garbage in the house. It's pretty obvious that is not the way that we were designed. We're designed to eliminate.
Right.
So all that to say that healthy in the long run means nice balanced diet every day.
Right. Before we go, I have to ask one more thing. Supplements. Somebody posted in the 40 Thrive community asking about supplements that other people take and vitamins. And it was fun to watch because some people swear by their supplements and others, somebody said, oh, my doctor just said to keep eating these things and that's enough. And then another person said, well, you'd have to eat this amount to actually, what do you think about supplements?
Oh yeah, it's a hugely controversial topic. Yeah. Wow.
Isn't it funny that we live in a day and age that's the controversy?
I know, it's not
supplements.
Wild.
Yeah.
And it is big business. So every time something is big business, you should have your clear light on. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Who is saying what? So I want to be very upfront that absolutely, it's big, big, big business. And the other part of this that people should understand is that nutritional research is extremely flawed by design because it's very difficult. Imagine if you and I were to eat the same thing every day and they would say, okay, Jackie and Annie, you get a supplementation of vitamin C, for example. And then we're going to track in a month and 2 months and 3 months and see where your levels. And guaranteed they would be different, even though for the most part we ate the same. But did we? And then am I going to admit that I had also 5 gin and tonics, over the weekend? Well, maybe not. I don't think I'm going to admit that. And my level of activity was different than yours. I live in Toronto in the north. You live in the south. You have far more exposure to the sun, different metabolism again, and your genetic background. I'm from European descent. I don't know about you. But all of those things make for different outcome. So I don't know how they can truly measure the efficacy. We know, however, that there are a few that have been proven. So I always say, for my skeptics out there, I will tell you vitamin D, 80% of North Americans are deprived. And that has been scientifically peer-reviewed journal. That's what I'm talking, like the highest of scientific gold stamp, for sure. Omega-3s for brain health, for sure. And for women past 45, I always say, like, mature women supplements of the highest quality, absolutely. And I take those things even though I eat pretty well. But it's very difficult with the nutrients that we get in our food today, which are, by the way, much lower than they used to be. It's just not enough. So making sure that you are supplementing is, for me, bar none. I will always recommend that my clients do it.
I see vitamins that are plant-based, so they can be absorbed, and you can read articles all day long, and then you go into the grocery store or wherever you buy your vitamins or supplements, and it looks like they're created equally, but like, I have a feeling if they're in gummy form with, dinosaurs, that maybe they're not the same. How do you know where to buy certain supplements? I
would say go to the best health food store that you can have in your community. Not everyone lives in big urban centers.
Right. And we're not talking about and I don't want to like say any stores, but not talking about your mall health food store.
Correct.
That's looking to like buff you up.
That's right. I'm talking about people who, if you look at the rest of the store, it's all about whole foods, right? Yeah. They care about foods that have not been processed.
So specifically Whole Foods as the store, like, would you recommend people buying their vitamins there?
Definitely. Okay. Yeah, they have knowledgeable people there. They buy, for the most part, what I believe are reputable brands. Right? So those are the best places to go for sure. Better than the chains that pretend to be drugstores. Those kinds of things, I don't recommend as much. If that's the only thing you have in your community, of course. Right? And then get the best that your money will buy there. But the reality is that the pharmacists are not trained with those types of information as to know which are the better or not. Right. So I know how challenging it can be for people. Right. But if you can, health food store by far are your best bet.
You can spend a lot of money on supplements. It's like, oh, this is $40. This is $70. The next thing you know, you're like, oh, there's $200 a month in supplements. And that's just too much for a lot of people. And so
absolutely.
How do you prioritize? I mean, I guess you'd go to someone like you and do the blood work and all that and maybe prioritize what supplements you actually need.
Absolutely.
Because it just seems like a game.
Yes. And we have tools to assess based on your symptoms where you are weak. Right? We can definitely see that between symptoms and between blood work, for sure. We can see where there are some deficiencies, but it's clear that we need to do that first in order to be able to recommend what the person needs.
Of course. Well, I love not only your expertise, but your story and how you came to be. I think there are a lot of women out there who've lived very intense lives and they really want to go from that intense to intentional. And so you're a great example of that. And anybody who wants to work with you should head over to the show notes and I will link to all the places to reach you and to work with you.
Thank you. And there's another tool also for your listeners right on the website. I developed a wonderful little tool called Your Thriving at Home Guide. And just really practical strategies that people can apply. And they don't need anything fancy, but they're great things that you can do right away that will actually raise your energy and make sure that you optimize your health even during COVID time.
We could all use that.
Yes.
Annie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to head on over to 40thrive.com/episode 85 to win the full Kindra product suite. You'll be feeling more like yourself in no time. Until next time, take care and keep thriving.